Doc Rivers said this: Donald Trump is going to be a fine president. That's something I never thought I would say. Honestly, at the end of the day, he will be, because I just believe in America overall works. There's a Congress, a Senate. It's going to work out. I think sports should have helped us before the election. Never underestimate your opponent is one thing I saw from the beginning. And honestly, you guys know, I guess President Trump, that's the first time I've said that. Oh boy. And he was underestimated. He really was from the beginning. And I think we talk in sports every night, don't underestimate your opponent. And after defeat, the sun comes back up. You get back to work in the political process. The way you go back to work is actually to get out and vote, instead of protest. A lot of people didn't vote. They wake up the next morning and they're upset. That nailed it. Hey, that nailed it. Listen, this is my show. It's a sports show, but this has become part of sports. It's going to become part of our sports culture. We're going to have to figure out a way to heal. I don't think it's simply as easy as the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court will fix it, because it's all one-sided now. That's the checks and balances not being checked and balanced. We're depending on the goodwill of people, which in many ways has not been shown. But it's a hard spot to be in. And Van Jones said it on CNN on the election night, and Steve Kerr echoed it. There is supposed to be a sort of dignity, even in the tough slog of a campaign. But then Doc Rivers nailed it even more at the end. Where were all these athletes and coaches when this mess was taking place? I don't know if scared of the repercussions, or just so bothered by it that you just brushed it aside, like nobody's voting for a person that talks that way, that handles themselves that way, and that, frankly, what they stir up. Because there are people who are sensible, like, look, I actually like some of what I've heard. Like, not every person that voted for Donald Trump is a racist and misogynist, but what you've allowed to happen is that sort of behavior, that sort of language, that sort of presence is now acceptable in running for president. And the people who protested, where were you leading marches for voters to vote on Tuesday? And this is the problem. You have the people like the Colin Kaepernicks of the world, who we called out on Tuesday, who said, I'm not voting. I'm not voting. And, of course, he explained why. Jake Arrieta said, time for Hollywood to pony up and head for the border. Hashtag I'll help you back. Hashtag beat it. Like, Jake Arrieta, I don't know if you understand. I understand that Americans in baseball are almost all white. But, like, dude, that is really not the message. Like, Jay Cutler came out and said he'd supported Trump for a long time. Like, that's not divisive language. But telling people to pack up and beat it, what are you doing, dude? Right? And I get that people said I'd move to Canada if he was elected. Hey, look, Aaron Rodgers said that he would give a guy his salary if Ryan Braun had taken steroids. He didn't give anybody his salary. Colin Kaepernick said that a vote wouldn't change a system that oppresses the people of color. And to me, it really didn't matter who went in there. The system remains intact that oppresses people of color. That's just, it's the wrong attitude to have. It just is. If you're willing to protest, if you're willing to stop traffic, if you're willing to say this is not the way we go, like, again, even the people who are leading protests to not vote or after the vote, like, the ramifications of it are going to be felt for years. That was actually said during the election process, if you paid attention. One Supreme Court seat is open. There's likely to be at least one more in the next 4 years. Plus, the House controlled by one side, Senate, same side. And, oh, yeah, by the way, the Senate seats come up in 2 years, and that's likely to take more seats from the other side. Like, it's going to be one-sided. And that's not the side that's protected people who are, in fact, protesting. You didn't pay attention, and now you're mad because you didn't pay attention. And, of course, NBA players are now saying, Jalen Rose said, hey, guys are going to start boycotting the White House visits. Just so you're aware, there have been athletes that have chosen to not go to White House visits when Barack Obama was there. I think the difference is that Barack Obama did not stir up hate speech. Oh, man, it's a very interesting time. Mike Freeman wrote this. He's NFL lead writer for Bleacher Report. Excuse me. One white offensive lineman said, one of the greatest days of my life. One black offensive lineman said, one of the worst days of my life. It's like my dog died. Worse. One special teams player. Trump is creating a more blue-collar America. And at its core, we're a blue-collar sport. This is going to be fascinating. Unfortunately, like we're part of a social experiment. And we've allowed it to be that way. But I am also not somebody who says that you can't accept it. That is a result. This is the way it worked. And as Doc Rivers said, sports should have helped beforehand. Should have helped beforehand. And it didn't. And so these same NBA players or NFL players that are bothered, they'll still be big figures in 4 years. Lead the protests before, not after. Once you're reactive, you become the fan that, hey, that's not fair. This is not the way we want to go. Like, look, I respect the hell out of Steve Kerr. If you know about his dad and how his dad was assassinated in Lebanon, you know about his own personal background. But I do think that what's missing from this is none of these guys spoke up beforehand. And maybe it's what Doc Rivers said. We underestimated. We thought it was a joke. We thought it wouldn't happen. Again, sports to tell you, don't ever underestimate your opponent. Cover all the boxes. Prepare for every game as if that. I've always said this, like, you never give Nick Saban a chance to prepare, like 2 weeks off, right? Give him a bye week, he's always going to win. Hey, the other team has a chance to prepare. But if you don't, he wasn't punting. He was going for it. But a very interesting time in sports and how we view sports, how we view athletes. And I know that there are some people who will believe, and there's probably some truth to it, that some coaches will side with their athletes, especially NBA, because it's a predominantly black sport. That they will side with them because you can't walk into an NBA locker room and say, hey, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm not a racist, but you guys are wrong, and be an NBA head coach. I do think that'll happen, but I don't think that's what Kerr and Stan Van Gundy are speaking to. They're speaking to, hey, I paid attention. Hey, I was appalled. I thought everybody was appalled, but apparently there's a portion of our society that was not appalled and looked past those things that should be appalling.